For over 2,000 years, the Roman Empire has haunted our imagination, not just as a story of conquest, power, and ambition, but as a mirror of ourselves. Why does a civilization long dead still echo in our politics, our cities, our very way of thinking? Tonight, we travel back to the blood-stained streets of Rome, to the clash of empires, and to the men and women whose choices shaped the world forever. For over 2,000 years, the Roman Empire has haunted our imagination, not merely as a story of power and conquest, but as a mirror of ourselves. Why do we still think about Rome today? Because the echoes of its ambition, its triumphs, and its betrayals still shape the world we live in. The streets of Rome shimmered under the golden afternoon sun, marble columns casting long shadows across the forum. Merchants hawked olives and spices, senators whispered in shadowed alcoves, and soldiers marched in perfect formation, their armor glinting with the discipline and precision that had built an empire stretching from the windswept coast of Britannia to the deserts of Egypt. But beneath the surface of this magnificent civilization, tension festered. Julius Caesar, the most brilliant military mind of his age, had returned from Gaul victorious, his legions bloodied but unbroken, his reputation now larger than Rome itself. Whispers followed him through the marble halls. He seeks too much power. He threatens the Republic. Among the conspirators, Brutus and Cassius plotted in silence, their loyalty to Rome pitted against the intoxicating shadow of ambition. Meanwhile, across the empire, a different kind of storm brewed. In Gaul, Vercingetorix, a young and fiery chieftain, united the tribes in defiance of Roman occupation. The forests and hills echoed with the clash of iron and the cries of battle. Caesar's legions, disciplined and relentless, pressed forward, siege towers scratching the sky, catapults raining death upon fortified walls. Rome was everywhere, yet Rome was not invincible. Inside the Senate, Augustus, then Octavian, watched the chaos unfold with calculated patience. Politics was a battlefield of its own. Every word spoken in the marble corridors, every vote cast, carried the weight of life and death. The Republic was fragile, and the ambitions of a few could topple the world's greatest civilization. Amidst the grandeur, the tension was almost tangible. The people cheered for Caesar, yet the senators murmured conspiracies. Soldiers followed orders without question, yet in the shadows, alliances shifted like sand. Rome's fate hung by a thread, balanced between the glory of conquest and the inevitability of betrayal. The evening sun dipped low, casting a crimson hue over the forum, and Caesar strode toward the Senate, unaware that daggers waited in the shadows, that the loyalty of men he trusted most teetered on the edge of treachery. Outside, Vercingetorix prepared for one final stand, knowing that the fate of his people and the legend of Rome would be decided in a single bloody clash. And in that moment, history paused, holding its breath. The might of an empire, the ambition of men, and the defiance of the conquered all collided. One decision, one betrayal, one battle could change the course of the world forever. The first light of dawn broke over Gaul, casting a pale gold across the rolling hills. Smoke still rose from the villages scorched in Rome's relentless advance. Vercingetorix stood atop a ridge, his cloak whipping in the wind, eyes scanning the disciplined columns of Caesar's legions below. "Well, they think their steel can crush our spirit," he muttered to his lieutenants. "They forget men fight harder for freedom than for glory." In the distance, the siege towers creaked and swayed as Roman engineers adjusted catapults, while Caesar, mounted on his white horse, surveyed the battlefield with calm precision. "We must break their lines before they break the hearts of our men," he said, fingers tracing the map etched into the dirt. A divide and conquer. That is how empires are built. The clash was brutal. Arrows darkened the sky, clashing with the rhythmic pounding of Roman shields. Cavalry thundered across muddy fields, hooves smashing into earth and bone. Vercingetorix's forces launched surprise attacks from the forests, flanking Caesar's troops, but Roman discipline held firm. The Gauls fought valiantly, yet one by one their walls crumbled, their hope faltered under the relentless tide of Rome. Meanwhile, far from the battlefield, political intrigue festered in the marble corridors of the Senate. Brutus whispered to Cassius, his voice low and trembling with both fear and resolve, "We cannot allow one man to rule over Rome as if it were a kingdom. The Republic dies if we do nothing." Cassius nodded, fingers brushing the hilt of his hidden dagger. "But tonight we reclaim the soul of Rome, or die trying." The day bled into night. Fires lit the horizon as the Romans tightened their siege on Alesia. Caesar's legions, encircling the city, constructed double lines of fortifications, a trap for both the defenders and any reinforcements. Every soldier knew the stakes. Every move mattered. In this moment, Rome's strength lay not in numbers alone, but in strategy, precision, and a yielding will. Back in Rome, Octavian observed the growing unrest, sensing that the threads of loyalty were fraying. Senators plotted openly, alliances shifted like shadows, and rumors of rebellion whispered through the halls. While the Republic teeters, Octavian murmured, eyes narrowing. And from this chaos, power will rise, either to save Rome or to enslave it. As the first stars blinked into the night sky, Caesar's scouts returned with news. Reinforcements for the Gauls approached. Vercingetorix's last hope surged forward, ready to break the siege. In Rome, Brutus and Cassius readied themselves for a night that could change history forever. Across the continent, the empire's fate hung in a delicate balance between the cunning of a general, the bravery of a freedom fighter, and the ambition of men who dared to wield the power of a civilization. And as the campfires of the Romans flickered and shadows danced across the battlefield, one truth loomed. The outcome of this war would decide not just who ruled, but how the story of Rome would be remembered. The battlefield was a sea of fire and shadow. Dawn broke over the battered walls of Alesia, illuminating the exhaustion etched on the faces of Vercingetorix's warriors. Their courage had been unmatched, but against the might of Rome, it was not enough. Caesar rode along the front lines, his cloak-bloodied eyes scanning the horizon. "Hold fast," he commanded, voice cutting through the smoke. Today we shape history. Vercingetorix, realizing the futility of continued resistance, called his warriors together. "We have fought bravely, my people. We may fall, but our spirit will live in the heart of Gaul." With a solemn nod, he surrendered to Caesar, placing himself at the mercy of Rome. The battlefield, once roaring with a clash of swords, fell into a tense, haunting silence. Meanwhile, back in Rome, Brutus and Cassius moved through the shadowed corridors of the Senate. The night air was thick with betrayal and anticipation. And then it came, the strike that would echo through eternity. Caesar, the man who had conquered worlds and defied the Republic, fell to the blades of those he trusted most. The Senate floor was soaked in crimson, the cries of betrayal mingling with the gasps of the onlookers. History pivoted on this single night. The consequences rippled across the empire. Rome did not collapse overnight, but the seeds of civil war were sown. Octavian, now the calculating observer, maneuvered with unmatched patience, eventually emerging as Augustus, the first emperor. The Republic faded, replaced by a new order, a centralized authority that would rule for centuries, forging laws, roads, and institutions still visible in our world today. Yet the impact of these events extended far beyond politics. The tales of Roman valor, discipline, and ambition inspired generations. Vercingetorix's defiance became legend, a symbol that freedom could challenge even the mightiest empires. Caesar's ambition and eventual downfall reminded the world of the thin line between power and hubris. And the Romans' genius in engineering, law, and governance planted the seeds of civilizations yet to come. Morgan Freeman's voice would linger here, deep and reflective. Rome fell, yet it never truly died. Stories, its victories, its betrayals, live on not just in ruins of marble and stone, but in our governments, our cities, our imagination. We study Rome because it is us, magnified its civilization of ambition, ingenuity, and the eternal struggle for power. In the quiet aftermath, the empire that once dominated the known world seemed distant, yet closer than ever. The Forum lay in partial ruin, yet its shadow still spoke of speeches, debates, and triumphs. Soldiers returned home, cities rebuilt, and their leaders rose. Rome had transformed, leaving behind a legacy that refused to be forgotten. And so, as we walk through our own modern cities, gaze upon monumental architecture, or debate the limits of power, the Roman Empire whispers to us across time. Remember me, it seems to say. You learn from me, or be doomed to repeat me. The story ends not with a final battle, but with a question that lingers. Why does Rome still captivate us, still shape our world, still haunt our dreams? Its empire may have fallen, but its echo will never fade.